Good morning and welcome to our class today on winter seed sowing success. Now, this is from my book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Seed Saving and Starting. And the reason I did this is tomorrow is December 21st, and that is the official date for winter seed sowing. So since we are moving away from soil and fertilizers and compost and into seeds, I thought that this would be very appropriate to teach you about winter seed sowing today. It's also fun. So I did want to have a little bit of fun with this course, and winter seed sowing is definitely a lot of fun. It saves a lot of time in the spring, and once you get the hang of it, you are really, really going to enjoy this. So I hope that you have been saving up your 2-liter pop bottles, your clear milk jugs, or whatever other containers that you intend to winter sow some plants in. I also hope that you have some seeds that you can winter sow. If not, you can certainly get online and order some. I don't know if there's any in the stores right now, but I don't know that there's not either. You may be able to find some. So, winter sowing and direct sowing are two of the easiest seed starting methods that are out there. I actually think that winter sowing is one of the easiest as long as you choose the right seeds to do this with. As the seasons change, nature does the work of stratification. So unless you have a really, really hard seed that needs to be nicked or have some other special kind of treatment, such as the cold, warm cycle, you can pretty well do the winter seed sowing. And even some of those seeds that do need that cold, warm cycle, if you live in an area where it gets cold and then it kind of warms up and then it gets cold again, like where I live here in Indiana, those seeds will certainly work for winter sowing. And if you think about when you walk through your garden or someone else's garden and you have all of these seedlings that have started, all of those plants are fantastic candidates for winter seed sowing. The other great thing about winter seed sowing is you don't have to worry about hardening the plants off. There's no moving the containers in and out of your house or worrying if you've left them out too long or any of that, because again, you're starting them out in this little container outdoors. As the temperature's warm, you are going to eventually completely remove this lid, but you're going to find a way to vent it, as you can see. The round containers take a little more effort than the square containers. If you have anything like juice or such that comes in a square container, those are sometimes a little easier, but they all certainly work. It's just, you may have to come up with some inventive ideas, such as this. You could put a tall dowel rod in this. I would probably take the lid off and insert the dowel rod and then kind of bend it back and try to get the dowel rod to prop this up a little bit. Or you could just simply stick something in here to give it a little bit of a vent as the days get warmer in the spring. So winter seed sowing is nothing more than planting seeds outdoors during winter and letting nature do the work of stratification. This allows the seeds to germinate naturally, just as they would in the wild. Winter sown seeds do the best in mini greenhouses, which is what this is. It's just a small protective structure that you can make from recycled materials. And you can use plastic pop bottles, clear milk cartons, juice bottles. I've seen people use the clear takeout containers. I've seen people use the clear containers that sometimes fruits or vegetables come in. Really, any kind of container that is basically sealed. You will be putting some air holes and some drainage holes in it, but we'll go over that here in a minute. So basically any kind of container that is mostly sealed, that is going to prevent too much cold air from getting in and too much moisture from the outside elements, the rain and the snow getting in. You're going to need some seed starting soil. So whatever type of soil that you normally start your seeds with, for me, I usually use a mixture of peat moss, perlite, and vermiculite. And I add in just enough of the perlite and vermiculite that I can easily see it. I don't want it overran with that material. So I would maybe say a bag of vermiculite and a bag of perlite to an entire plastic tub, the great big plastic tubs. I think they're like 18 liters or something of peat moss, and then of course your hot water to get that where it's going to be moist, because you want to start with moist soil in these containers. There are many recipes, of course, that you can use to do this, or you could just buy a seed starting mix. You could buy really anything as long as it's a good, well-drained soil that is not going to hold a lot of water or be so dense that the seedling roots can't penetrate it. So, for example, you don't want to use topsoil for winter seed sowing. It's just too dense, it remains too wet, and it does not allow for good root development of the plants, especially seedlings that have delicate roots. So that's why it's so important to have a really good mix when you're starting seeds. Now, starting seeds at the right time is the key to success. You want to wait until the temperature outside remains cold. Cycles of warm, cold can cause seeds to germinate too early, and your seedlings won't survive. Now, I had mentioned that there are some seeds, peonies come to mind. Peony seeds need that warm, cold cycle. There are other seeds that also need it. I'm thinking milkweed is another one that can benefit from that. But you do want to watch and be careful, and that's why we wait until December 21st to do our outdoor seed starting. Because in most areas, it is cold enough by then that, yes, you may get a little bit of warm days. And certainly inside of these little mini greenhouses we're going to make, it's going to be warmer than the outside. But hopefully you're not going to have, 50 or 60 degree days and 20 degree nights, because that would be really, really bad. Now, if the temperatures in your area are not stable by December 21st, and you just feel like, oh, it's, the date is right, but the temperatures outside are not right, wait a little bit longer. I have sown seeds in these clear up into March and April. Now, technically, that's not winter seed sowing, because you technically do it when it is cold outside. But sometimes it is easier to start your seeds in these and just set them outside and let nature do the work and then transplant them up than it is to start them, say, in damp paper towels indoors, or deal with all the different issues that you might be dealing with indoors of, not enough light, no place to put your seedlings, and the list can really go on and on. With this, you're just finding a protected place outdoors, maybe up against the south side of your house or some other area that's not going to get a lot of wind, because you really don't want these, knocked over, because that can upset the seedlings. and can cause you to lose them. You want these to stay upright. So you could even put these into, say, a milk crate or a vegetable crate or some other kind of container and pack them in tight so that the wind can't flip them about. Because the sunlight is going to come from the top as well as the sides of these. And if all of your containers are clear, certainly that's not going to block any sunlight. So, now you might wonder, what kind of seeds can I winter sow? There are quite a few half-hardy annual seeds that are ideal for winter sowing. So again, look around your garden and see what plants will self-sow in it. Look around your neighbors' gardens. Those plants that have all the seedlings coming up around them, if you save some of those seeds, you can winter sow those. And if you don't want to save the seeds, then you can always just buy some. Now, while it's not necessarily essential to protect those type of seeds with a mini greenhouse, because they do come up on their own in your garden, there are some advantages to protecting them inside of a mini greenhouse. You can space them better or put them in other areas of your garden. You can prevent birds, mice, or other critters from carrying away the seeds or the young seedlings. And you can also make sure that severe weather or heavy precipitation won't wash away or kill the seeds. So, let's say you have a bunch of these, and let's say it's going to get negative 20 degrees outside. And you can see your little seedlings starting to grow, and you're really nervous about this. You could move these into, say, an unheated garage, the basement of your house, or some other area that is cool, but not quite as cold as it's going to be outside. If you don't have any place like that, you could always throw some thick, heavy blankets over the top. You could throw some extra layers of 6mm plastic over the top. Anything that you could do to kind of give this a little extra protection from any kind of extreme cold weather. So, I have often set mine down inside of larger cold frames to give them that extra protection, and they have done fine all winter long. And I've had beautiful seedlings come spring that I could pot up and transplant, put into the garden, sell for extra money or whatever it was I wanted to do. You know, take to the swaps in the spring and swap with other gardeners. I mean, you know, there's just really a lot of things you can do. Now, winter sowing is perfect for perennial seeds because the weather stratifies them naturally, and that's less work for you. However, the ones that require scarification or have a double dormancy might not be ideal. It doesn't mean that they won't work. It doesn't mean that you can't try them. It means that you really need to know, what does the seed need in order to germinate? Does it need to be scarified? Does it need the warm, cold, warm cycle? Does it need light? Does it need darkness? Because whatever that seed needs, you need to make sure it gets it with winter sowing. So, for example, if you have seeds that need darkness to germinate, you're going to put your soil in here, maybe up about this high. You don't need a lot of soil. And then I sprinkle vermiculite on top in a thin layer. If the seed needs light, I put the seeds directly on top of the vermiculite, and I just leave them alone. If the seeds need darkness, I'll sprinkle another thin layer of vermiculite on top of the seeds. So a layer of vermiculite under the seeds, and then a layer of vermiculite over. And then I'll just seal this up and set it outside. And that way those seeds have that darkness that they need, even though they're outside. Another option, if you have really fine seeds that need darkness and you're scared to cover them for whatever reason, you know, you're afraid you'll get the cover too thick or whatever, you could put those in a deep shaded area and just see how they do. Now, of course, the little greenhouse isn't going to get as warm inside in deep shade because it's not going to have that sunlight, but it still might give those seeds exactly what they need to be able to come up and germinate. The best method, however, is just to use a little vermiculite and cover them. Now, I'm going to go over a few half-hardy annual seeds that are good for winter sowing. Amaranth, of course, that's a vegetable, as you know. A lot of people just grow it as a flower, but you can grow it as a vegetable and eat the leaves and the seeds. Baby's breath, bells of Ireland, candy tuft, celosa, Chinese foxglove. Now, this is not digitalis. This is not the normal foxglove that you see in your garden. Cleome, Coreopsis, Cosmos, forget-me-nots. Ever wondered how to get those to germinate easily? Winter sowing is your answer there. Larkspur, love in a mist, Mexican sunflower, milkweed. Now, many milkweeds are perennial, but there are also some that are half-hardy annual. So this is where you need to know what type of milkweed do you have. Both will work in winter sowing. Nasturtiums, morning glories, nicotiana, petunias, phlox, poppies, rudbeckias, salvia, stocks, sunflowers. Did you know that? Sweet alyssum, sweet peas. This is the flowering sweet peas. And viola. These are all fantastic candidates for winter sowing. Now, here are some perennials that are good for winter sowing. Arum, bear's breeches, baptisia, bee balm, bellflower, blanket flower, which is gaillardia. Again, there are some annual varieties and there are some perennial varieties. Clematis, columbine, coneflower, coral bells, daisies, daylilies, delphiniums, dianthus. That's a very popular one that is also an annual or a perennial, depending on the variety, that works well for winter sowing. Evening primrose, foxglove, gas plant, hellebores, hollyhocks, hostas, iris, liatris, different types of lilies, lupines, again we have milkweed, monkshood, peonies, phlox, again annual and perennial varieties, poppies, salvia, Solomon's seal, verbascum, viola. Again, there are annual and perennial varieties. Winter aconite, wisteria, yarrow, and yucca. So that is not a comprehensive list by any means. That is just meant to give you a few ideas of different types of plants that you could winter sow if you wanted to. Next, we need to talk about protecting your seedlings because this is the important part. You're protecting them from the weather elements, pest, and disease. So, first of all, you need to make sure your containers are clean. I like to fill these with soapy water just as soon as I empty them, hot soapy water, and shake them up and let them set for maybe an hour, and then I dump them, and then I refill them with more hot soapy water and let them kind of set because I want to get anything that might be inside of these out and get these really clean. Especially milk jugs. This is really, really important. If the milk has soured in the jug, I normally won't use that. So I will throw that jug away and start with a different one. Also, if you're using any kind of food containers and the food has molded, I suggest that you get rid of that container and not use it. Now, that's not to say that you can't get it clean and sterile, but, you know, better to err on the side of caution. Okay, you also need sterile soil and clean seeds, and this will go a long way towards preventing most diseases. So if you've collected the seed yourself, you want to get all that chaff off. You want to make sure there's, you know, nothing yucky on the seed. If you see signs of mold or other things on the seed, I would just get rid of the seed. You can try to put it in hydrogen peroxide and clean the seed, but I would probably just get rid of the seed. Whatever you put in this environment is what you're going to get out. So you want to put the best seeds and soil inside of here so that you get nice, healthy plants back. Okay, seed starting soil should be sterile, although I have seen some that's not weed-free, which makes me kind of wonder. If you make your own from purchased ingredients, that should also be sterile, but again, you know, sometimes it doesn't work that way. When you amend soil with something you've made, like compost, it's best to sterilize it before you add it. If you want to know how to do that, you can go back into last week's video, and we talked a little bit about sterilizing soil using a barbecue grill. I feel like compost is best used for potting up the seedlings and not for starting the seedlings, but of course that is your own choice, your personal choice. Seeds purchased from a commercial source are guaranteed to be clean and free of pest and disease. However, seeds that you've collected yourself or you've traded for, that another gardener has collected, there is no guarantee that those are going to be free of disease or free of pest. So keep that in mind. This is why it's so important to inspect seeds to make sure they are clean and don't show any signs of problems before you store them or plant them. So now we're going to talk about how to build your mini greenhouse. You use recycled materials for these. If you don't drink soda, you know, you don't have access to clear milk jugs or any of the other items, ask people to save these for you. And ask them to rinse them out, because a lot of people will just, you know, throw them in a bag with whatever remnants of what was in them. And that's not what you want. If you don't think the person is going to be willing to rinse them out and at least try to clean them up a little bit, then it might be best to ask if you can collect containers from them. Every time they're out, just have them call you and go get the container and do it yourself. So, the first thing that we're going to do here is wash these in warm soapy water, as I went over. And then you want to allow the containers and the caps to thoroughly air dry. I like to save these throughout the year and just put them in a great big garbage bag and hang them up down in the basement or someplace like that where they're clean. I do leave them set upstairs and dry good. But then once they're dry, I just put the cap back on and toss them in a bag. I don't cut them up or do anything. I just toss them in a hole. And then when I get ready to prepare these, I can just take that bag down. There may be a little bit of dust on the outside that I need to rinse off and then let them dry up again. But that doesn't take much at all. It's a lot easier to do it that way than to pre-drill your holes and everything and have dust on the inside that you have to deal with. So, you want to take a Sharpie and you want to mark 6 holes. I don't know how well you can see these. You want to mark six dots right about here. This is one, again, I don't know how well you can see these. Let me see if I can. There, I don't know if you guys can see those little holes, but there's 6 of them up here. I used an 1/8 of an inch drill bit to do this, okay? And then I did the same thing on the bottom. I have holes on each one of these points, and then I also have a hole right here in the center. Again, I don't know there. That might let the light shine on. The reason I put a hole here in the center is this is sort of the flat part. This is where a lot of water will collect if there was no drainage. Water would also collect down here in these if there was no drainage. So I looked for the areas that water would collect, and I put my drainage holes there so that I have good drainage on these. And then you need to cut right above the center area. I like to make my caps hinge like this so that I don't lose the cap, and so that if I need to air vent it, the top of this is still kind of attached. If you accidentally cut these all the way off, or you find it's easier to cut them all the way off, that is okay too. You can certainly take the cap off and you have a big air vent here if you'd rather vent that way. So it's basically all up to you and how you want to do it. And then once my container is ready, I will fill it, like I said, just about maybe right here. You don't need a lot of soil. With my seed starting mix, I will put my vermiculite on top and then my seeds. And then depending on the seed, I will either cover the seeds with a little more vermiculite or I will leave them. Once that's done, I want to put a label inside of here. I like to use the little plastic pieces from the window blinds and a Sharpie. You can also use a number 2 pencil. And I like to stick that label right down in here with the name of the plant sticking out. Now, if you don't have labels and you don't want to invest in labels, you could also use a Sharpie and just write the name of the plant right up here on the plastic itself. That will certainly work. And then once I get my label in, I close this up like this. You see, we didn't, it's still tight. We didn't make any gaps or anything here. And what I'm going to do is take the clear packing tape, and I'm going to start at the back, and I'm going to go all the way around this, back to the back, one layer of the clear packing tape, and making sure that any place that I have a cut is covered by that packing tape. That way it is sealed. The only air holes that you're going to have at that point are these ones on top and these drainage holes on the bottom. And that's what you want to do. And then you want to set this outdoors in a protected area. That's it. That is your mini greenhouse. Now, you are going to check on these. I can be a little obsessive, so I like to check my mini greenhouses once a week. I don't open them up or anything. I just kind of, pick them up. Just the soil still look moist. You can tell by the color of the soil. If it's still really dark, it's moist. If it's starting to lighten up a little bit, it might need a little bit of water. If I water, I typically fill a container, and I will set this in a container and let the water soak up from the bottom. I let it sit there for about 15 minutes. If I feel like, oh, this just really isn't working out, for whatever reason, the soil isn't soaking up, or, I don't know what might be going on, I will take this lid off and I will use a very fine watering sprinkler, and I will just go back and forth like this because I just want a little bit of the water to go into this, not much at all. You don't want to overwater these. So, and I will look, and you can usually just see it flowing down and starting to re-wet that soil. And you do want to pay attention to this. You also want to watch for heat buildup. If there is a lot of moisture forming, you see a lot of what looks like steam inside of here, that might be a good indicator that you need to take this cap off and let a little bit of that out. Now, don't leave the cap off too long because you certainly don't want to let all of your heat out, but you might need to give it just a little bit of ventilation, 5-10 minutes, and that should probably cool things down. You also want to watch for signs of germination. You'll see the little green seedlings starting to grow. Now, I am not huge about opening these up until maybe late March, early April. And then I may go ahead and take this cap off, but I will save the cap because if it's going to rain, you're going to want to put this cap back on and seal it up. But maybe late March, early April, I'm going to go ahead and take that off. I'm going to let the seedlings adjust to the outdoor temperatures both day and night. And like I said, the only time I'm going to really concern myself is when it's going to rain or in the event that it's going to snow that late. As April begins to turn into May, you may want to, depending on how big your seedlings are and how well they're doing, you may want to go ahead and cut this top cap off and leave your seedlings completely exposed. Again, I would keep the top just temporarily in case you're going to have some heavy rains before you get these transplanted out of here. That way you can still go back and protect your seedlings. And if you want to fertilize these, compost tea is the best. I recommend the Moo Poo tea from Annie Haven. If you just go on and you search Moo Poo tea, you will find it. It is a fantastic compost tea. And you can also make your own. I've known people that's put a shovelful of their fertilizer into a 5-gallon bucket of water. They've topped it off with water and they've let it set and mixed it up a few times and used that as their compost tea. So it's whatever is easier for you and whatever works best for you. But I do hope that you will give this a try, this winter seed sowing. Like I said, tomorrow is the day, the official day. I suspect with the cold temperatures that are forecasted for this weekend that I personally am going to wait another week or so before I do any winter seed sowing this year. But this is a great way to get a lot of those flowers started and some vegetables that you may want, but you don't want to deal with starting them indoors and you don't yet have a big greenhouse to get them started in. So I hope this has been helpful, guys. If you have any questions, please ask those. You can leave them in the comments below or you can leave them in the group just as a question. I'm happy to answer those for you, and I certainly hope that you will try at least one type of seed with the winter seed sowing. I know it's easy to get carried away. I've done over 500 seeds at one time before, and that was quite a bit. Almost overwhelm for one person to do. So start slow, work your way up, and don't take on more than you can handle. We'll see you next week with another class. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. And I really want to see your pictures and hear your experiences with winter seed sowing.